Right, so obviously we had a big win last week, and we're coming on the back of a tough period, and we had to sit down and we had a chat. So what do you think was the big difference in the Leeds game compared to where we've been the last couple of weeks before that?
Your return, of course. I mean, I think that's what you were fishing for, wasn't it?
No, I
and maybe a little bit of Chrissy Sandow coming back.
That's all I've heard is about Chris and how good Chris is, and
not from me.
Small fella, and well, that's what we had in the video. It was we had the little fella back, and about Chris there. So
2 little fellas back. They've made up more than nearly a whole human being, really, between you.
Yeah. No, but seriously, I was asking a genuine question. I wasn't fishing then, you're trying to be funny, but I was actually trying to give the audience some information and what's the difference.
All sorts. Experience back there. It has been a tough period. We had a few people missing from time to time, some key people at different stages. In terms of rugby league, I thought our kicking game improved. I thought we had a couple of weeks of not kicking well as some of our defence probably not being as aggressive and as well organised as we have been in other games. But you go through periods where those things can falter.
Just on that, I got asked a question. I can't remember now. It was the last couple of weeks, and I didn't really have an answer for it. It was, do you think there's a big difference in the standard of Super League now compared to a few years back?
I think if you go on BBC radio, and I know I heard you on radio a few weeks ago at the ground, and I think it was Jack Dean asked you the question, and it's a tough one to assess, and it's all speculation and opinion really. And I think it's more competitive at the moment. I think all the teams are closer together. I think there's more teams that have bought well this year and are performing reasonably well. I think any team can win on their day. Is it a stronger competition? I'm not sure. I think we miss some of the players. It's great that Sam Tompkins, for instance, has returned. I think that strengthens our competition. But so having some of our English boys over in Australia playing, we've got to be careful that not too many more go all at once. It's competitive. It's as competitive as any competition I've played in so far across the board. So that makes it stronger in some respects.
Yeah. There's been obviously there's been a few dodgy haircuts in the club over the last couple of weeks, and to people who's not the best looking anyway. And we do have quite a bit of heated discussions throughout the boys of who's actually the ugliest in the team, because we've got quite a few that are pretty ugly. So obviously coming from a non-biased opinion of yours, who do you reckon is the ugliest in the team? And I don't want you to just say Coxie, because obviously everyone has got his finger about Coxie. If he's actually the ugliest, then say him. But if it's someone else, just an honest opinion so we can set this straight.
I look at you in a different light to that. You're all beautiful to me.
Yeah, beautiful people, but I'm on about looks wise.
Looks,
not the ugliest. Who's your top 3? What you reckon?
I can't do this. This is more player interview one. I'll keep out of this one. I'm playing my political role here.
We need a non-biased opinion.
No. Well, you can go and maybe put a poll out there on our website.
That's all my questions.
Well, I'm going to ask you, how have you found being injured? How have you found us going through a little bit of a patch when you've been on the bench? How do you handle that?
It was tough. It's my first proper long-term injury, and at first 5 weeks I was probably enjoying it. After I got over the initial disappointment of being injured, I was probably enjoying the new challenge, and I was learning loads off Sterlo and
what about how to take care of yourself?
How to take care of yourself and
prevent injury?
Yeah, definitely. But then as I got back running, and it was just a case of I wanted to get back playing.
Sure.
And I was getting these little setbacks, and it was a tough injury because you was never sure whether you was getting right or whether you was having a bit of a setback. So as I started running after about 5 weeks, it got frustrating, and that's when we started losing. So that was probably the tough period.
Sure.
And probably seeing the likes of Daz go through what he's gone through, and it's been tough on him having to do the minutes, and obviously the other boys being out injured, Chrissy, and sometimes you roll up and you can see that everyone's a bit down. I think that's probably the toughest thing about it.
Yeah, and keeping your spirits high even when there's a bit going against us. That's yeah, that's right. The other thing I want to, maybe you can tell people out there, is a bit of insight. You're doing a fair bit of coaching now, and how that's affected you and your development as a rugby league player.
I just think it's good it's something I enjoy, and I speak to loads of players and think, well, why are you doing it? I couldn't think of anything worse. It actually is something that I enjoy, and probably contradict myself a bit when I do a bit of coaching, because it's a lot easier to see things when you're sat back so high up and you're watching the game back, but I'm probably telling people to do stuff that I'm probably not so good at myself, and stuff that I don't do or see in a game. So that's probably a different way of looking at it, and that's probably where I'm learning. It's to do things that I'm telling players to do.
Absolutely.
Is make sure I'm going out there and doing them myself and seeing it from a different perspective, probably.
Yeah, and it puts a greater emphasis on it when you see other people do it. Then you know you've got to change it yourself. So you've got to start practicing what you're preaching. So
you could have probably done some of that when you was playing, couldn't you?
I did some as well, Brad.
Still a bad player.
I just didn't have the abilities that you have, and the speed and the cheek. I was much more respectful of my coaches and elders than what some of you younger whippersnappers are. No, listen, it was all it's all well and good to know what the game's about, but then to actually do it is a whole lot different. And I think you're learning a bit of both. You're doing it, but you're also getting a chance to talk about it and identify the game, and it helps you learn. That's for sure. Last one I've got is tell me about when you went away from our club on loan, how that experience has helped you. I know it's a fairly common one, but it's for you to be asked. But in reflection, has it helped you? Yeah, 100%.
There's no doubt about that. I think it was just the confidence it gave me, and I probably went into an environment where, not being big, but I was probably up there with a couple of the standout players, and that gave me the confidence to try and lead and set some examples in that team, and just overall the confidence that it gave me to play. And I'd not really had that at being at Warrington, and that wasn't because of the way I'd been treated or anything. It was just a situation I'd found myself in with obviously two good hookers in front of me, and it was literally if I played, I was getting 10-15 minutes because I probably wasn't up to that level, because I'd not played at that level, and I was just trying to impress and do too much, whereas I got the time at London and I knew that I was going to be playing, and I was going to get some game time behind me, and that just gave me the confidence. And then obviously when I came back, I was more or less not in the same boat as I was in London, but I was in a much more comfortable zone than I was when I was having a week while Monners was injured or while Mickey was injured.
Sure.
I knew that I was going to get a bit of backing behind me that
absolutely
in a couple of weeks.
I'd agree with all that, and that's mainly about your rugby. The other part that I think I saw is the maturity that you came back with as well. In many respects, you got a bit of confidence about living away from home and not getting everything done for you as you probably had been in the past. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's I enjoyed the challenge of actually growing up. But then from minute one, I sat and I said, I'm going to start coming back, and I'm going to start doing stuff for my dad right house, and not have everything done for me. And then from minute one, I just went straight back to being like I was before.
That's what sons do. That's what children do. So you didn't learn everything that you needed to, but it gave you a chance to mature. But from my perspective, and give people an idea out there, to see how you've grown through your coaching, but also through your confidence that you've got by going to London and living down there. You've come back and you're much more comfortable contributing to the team in not just what you do on the park, but in team meetings and in training sessions. I
think that's got something to do with the squad that we've got at the minute as well, though. I think it's a young squad and it's a new squad, so we're open to everyone getting a new role in the squad kind of thing, whereas back then it was an experienced squad that had been there a while, and they had these standards set, whereas now it's all about us young lads and new players coming in, probably setting them standards and finding your way in the squad
and re-establishing those standards that we've had. Yeah, absolutely. So good stuff.
Yeah, sweet.
Well done.